Last year, over 100,000 Californians left the state for Texas. Why? They weren't downsizing, they were upgrading. Because out here, your wealth works harder, your houses get bigger, and your life becomes a lot freer. And the headlines seem to all point to one thing, right? California still has, it's the postcard dream, right? It's got Napa Valley, it's got the beach, it's got Hollywood, it's the land of dreams, right? And I've even seen headlines and YouTube channels where people are talking about how all the Californians that moved to Texas during the pandemic are all going back to California. Well, that might sound good, but it's not working out in actuality. Again, over 100,000 people from California decided to come to Texas last year. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's like the entire city of Santa Barbara, California, everybody dropping for sale signs in their yard at the same time and hightailing it for Texas. And the thing is, like I mentioned earlier, it's not downsizers. This isn't just retirees. These are professionals. These are high worth individuals. Entrepreneurs are doing it. And the reason behind it is the math and the lifestyle, but mostly the math, that when you start to compare the math of living in California to the math of living in Texas, it is a no-brainer. And again, I'm not making this up. This is in the census data. Texas gained over 500,000 residents. California lost about 250,000. In fact, if this pace keeps up with what's happening right now, by 2045, Texas is going to have a larger population than California. Imagine that. We've been hearing forever, about California and how it's the most populous state. And Texas was just a bunch of, back roads and pastures. But here we are. Looks like Texas is going to be outgrowing the Sunshine State. And the thing is people aren't just up and leaving and getting out on a whim, right? These are well-calculated decisions. And I mean, people are following the lead of large corporations. I mean, the number of large corporations that have left California for Texas at this point it's still growing, first of all. But residents are taking notice. And the same thing is causing the businesses to leave as the families. First of all, they want to keep more of what they earn. Cost of living in Texas is a lot cheaper. They want less stress. They want more room to spread out, more space, and they just want more freedom. So I keep saying cost of living is cheaper here. Let's talk money for a little bit. The median home in California right now is about $850,000. In Texas, it's about $311,000. Even in the hot metros like Dallas or Austin, or actually Houston is the hot metro right now, but you're buying far more house for half the cost. Just imagine selling a 2,000 square foot house in California and buying a 4,500 square foot house in Texas. Probably going to have a little bit of land with it and a swimming pool to boot. And I'm going to tell you about one of my buyers from California. They sold about an 1,800 square foot house just east of San Francisco. I don't remember what the name of the place was. So they sold that little 1,800 square foot house and moved to Texas and promptly bought a 4,800 square foot house with a detached garage on an acre and a half and a swimming pool, and they still had money left over to invest. That seems like a win to me. Everybody wants to talk about taxes, and we know, first of all, California's income tax is a little bit crazy. And yes, Texas does not have an income tax, but everybody says, well, Texas's property taxes are so high. By percentage, they are. They average around 1.6, and I've seen them up as high as 3.5%. But the people who bring that up are people in California who are like, oh, our property taxes are so much lower. Well, yeah, sure. I've seen property taxes here up 3.5%, but because it's easy numbers, let me do 3%. If you take a house here at 3% that is worth $500,000, that's roughly $15,000 a year. Okay, well, if you take a house that is $1.5 million and a 1% tax rate, it's the exact same amount of taxes. So yes, Texas property taxes by percentage are higher, but because our property values are lower, you're still going to pay less in your property taxes, more than likely. And I know one of the reasons that people stay in California, even though they would love to move, is they feel like they're tied to their job, right? You've got the tech industry, you got entertainment industry, you've got all of the tourism and all of that, right? So you're tied to your job. But look at what's happening in Texas. Dozens of Fortune 500 companies have moved here at this point. You've got your tech, you've got Oracle and Samsung. I mean, Tesla, anybody? Yeah, he moved from California and he seems pretty happy about it. Then you take a look at Dallas, and their industry is huge with aerospace, and then Houston, the energy sector. Again, these are all jobs that continue to grow, and they're not going away anytime soon. And speaking of the tech industry, I had some buyers that moved here from California that are in tech. And they're both remote, and they're still remote in 2025. And they're like, yeah, I don't think my company's ever going to call us back into the office. Yeah, they left California, came to Texas, kept their jobs, and their comment is always like, it's basically a 30 or 40% raise that we got when we moved here. Another reason so many people are moving here is because of investment and real estate. I mean, think about the real estate market in California for a little bit. There's a reason it's so high, because it's tight, because you've got zoning and regulations and where you can build and what you can build and all of those things. And yes, we still have zoning and regulation here, but we have so much more land to build on and so much more that's getting developed that, again, the prices are just way cheaper. And if you're looking for investment, I've had several buyers from California now who live in California and have bought investment properties in Texas, again, because they want to get into real estate. They want to get into real estate investment and speculation. There's just no way to do it over there because A, because there's less inventory, B, because the prices are so much higher, and C, right now, a lot of the areas, the prices have kind of stagnated, so you're not really seeing that speculation, the increased values continuing to go up. And yeah, I mean, after COVID, we've had, or the last 2 years, we've had some of our markets have dropped a little bit, but we also have markets like the Houston area that they can't build houses fast enough because of all the people that are moving there at this point. And then you look out in the Texas Hill Country, and you've got places like Fredericksburg that in the last 5 years, they're up 40%. And Fredericksburg is not a cheap place to buy a house, but again, you have the ability to do some speculation in real estate and still come out ahead. And people just aren't seeing that as a possibility in California all that much anymore. And as an investor myself and other investors, you don't want to put money somewhere where it's just going to kind of stagnate, right? You're looking for that compound growth over time. And again, we've got to go back to taxes, because that is such a place for you where you're just losing money and it's just being siphoned from you every year. And I think the current numbers are that per person in California, each person pays essentially $7,000 in taxes every year. In Texas, that number is closer to $4,500. So you start compounding that year over year over year, that number gets larger and larger, obviously. And then as you make more money and become a higher earner in California, that number just continues to go up. So again, taxes make moving to Texas a no-brainer. I've seen studies that people in California can lose up to 50% of their income to taxes of some sort, state, local, federal, all combined. That's not happening in Texas. And also in Texas, you don't have to worry about that SALT deductions and figuring out all of that stuff either. Just nice, simple, pay your federal taxes, move down the road. Now, the one that is a little bit tough is climate. Yeah, I get it. Most of California, where people live, the climate rocks, and you've got amazing beaches, and you've got mountains, and you're skiing and all of that stuff. So yes, I get that. You also have earthquakes. You also have a lot of wildfires, it seems like. And yes, Texas does have wildfires from time to time. Just doesn't seem like they're quite as bad as what I'm seeing on TV out there. And most of the other stuff we can make up for. Okay, wineries. Yes, it's not Napa Valley, but people are starting to call it the Napa Valley of Texas. The area between Austin and Fredericksburg out in the hill country has got a ton of wineries, and the wine's getting better as well. You've got plenty of water if you want to get on a lake in a boat. Highland Lakes up through the hill country, bunch of water. Get on a boat anytime you want. Now for fishing, again, all the lakes and streams and everything around here are great. We do have ocean fishing. It's a little bit different. You got to drive 4 hours to the Gulf to get there, but there's fishing in the Gulf. And I know, if you want to snow ski, you're going to have to drive at least to New Mexico or Colorado. Now you can get there in a day's time. About 9 hours, I think, is the closest ski resort. But, it's a little bit further to get there, but you can still get there. But again, in terms of those lifestyle amenities, I mean, yeah, we've got things like backyards that you can actually put your entire family in. And we've got that all the way up to estates that you cannot see your neighbor's house, even though you're on top of a hill. And I've visited California a few times, and I can tell you without a doubt that the people here are much friendlier. And, if you don't like people telling you hi when you go to the grocery store and things like that, maybe stay in California. But if you're okay with getting to know your neighbors, there's no place like the hill country. Now, I want to compare education for a little bit. And yes, California's got some world-class universities. So if your kids are looking for specific education like that, okay, it's hard to beat. But I am going to point out we've got some pretty dang good universities here, very, very highly ranked. Texas A&M, Baylor. I don't really want to mention that Orange School in Austin by name, but you know the one I'm talking about. And I mentioned one of them in Baylor, but we've got private schools also like Rice that are just lights out in terms of amazing, amazing educations. If healthcare is a concern for you, and it is for some people, it shouldn't be. Texas has got an amazing healthcare system. Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, incredible healthcare facilities, leading worldwide cancer research, things like that. Just absolutely incredible how good our healthcare system is here. And this next one, this is one that people don't really consider it until they get here and they realize that, man, we should have actually thought about the quality of life before we came. We probably would have moved a lot sooner. Clients that I have from California that come in all the time, they talk about how much less stress they have because of their commute, how much the traffic is not as bad, the safety. A lot of them mention the safety and feeling safe walking through their neighborhoods, or walking to the community pool, or whatever that looks like. It's the quality of life, and they realize it after the fact, and they're like, man, Chris, this is something we should have considered a long time ago. And on top of that, talk about stress, and the stress of actually being able to afford your home. I read a stat recently that I think it's 16% of Californians actually can afford to buy a home there. That number's quite a bit higher in Texas. And again, the stress of being able to work a job and not have to worry about, is my rent going to go up, or how am I ever going to be able to afford the American dream, right? How am I going to ever be able to afford buying a house, and then realizing that you can move somewhere and you can afford to buy a house, and that lowers that stress level, and it just, it just makes you feel different. And again, that goes back to that quality of life of knowing I'm going to be able to make ends meet for my family. I'm going to be able to afford the house that I really want to buy for them. It's kind of a shocking revelation for a lot of people. And so, when you're comparing Texas and California, it's not necessarily about where you live, but it's more about how you live in your day-to-day life. And at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. California is always going to have the glitz and the glam. Texas is never going to compete with it, and most people that live here really don't want to. What Texas is about is preserving. If you've built wealth or you're building wealth, Texas allows you to hold on to more of that. If you're building a family, Texas allows you the safety and the ability to spread out, and the ability to let them grow up in an environment that could potentially be better for them. And if you're running a business, this again goes back to that wealth. If you're building wealth, Texas has fewer regulations. There's lower cost on everything from electricity to insurance to, again, the real estate that you're going to buy for your business. And again, if you're looking for a place where your home is more than a roof, Texas gives you that ability to build an actual legacy. So if this is a decision that you're trying to make and you want to talk to somebody who will actually give you real answers, not just headlines, give me a call. That's what I'm here for.